Hello everyone, welcome to CGMA, Interview with the Masters. Today we have the awesome Eric Ryan. Please be sure to check out his classes, Intro to Character and Creature Design. He's a phenomenal creature designer. He's got great work. And today it's a very open forum, so feel free to ask any questions on the chat box. I'll be relaying them to Eric as they come in. And yeah, I'm going to hand it off to Eric now.
Hello. So, just to, tell you a little bit about myself, I started back in 2003, so I have like a little over 12 years experience. So I think it was June 2003. And I left art school kind of midway through because I had an opportunity to get a job in a video game company, and I started out as like a 3D generalist, and then there's a few events that took place in the first couple of weeks where like the concept artists were leaving to go to another company, and so I immediately kind of started to fill that role, which is a role I wanted to be in anyways. I didn't want to be a 3D generalist. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I rose up to become a lead artist, and then eventually associate art director, and then kind of just went straight into concept design only after that, when I went to successive companies. So just kind of honed my skill through concept art, and I primarily just do creatures and character, character and creature design. And yeah, that's what I've been doing. The last few companies I've been at or done work for have been Sony, on God of War Ascension. I worked a little bit on Infinite Crisis. I'm at Treyarch right now, working on Black Ops 3. I did a lot. I don't know if you guys, anybody here, has seen any of the new trailers, but a lot of the stuff that I've been doing has been shown on the zombie trailers. I've been doing a lot of the zombie creature work.
Nice.
And also, I also designed the main characters for the zombies. The main characters you'll actually be for the zombies mode.
Cool.
So, yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of work, a lot of stress, all those things, because you're constantly under the gun. But yeah, I mean, we can open up the questions, and if you guys have anything more specific you'd like to ask, please feel free.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I'll let him know. I'll let you know as soon as they start coming in.
Okay. Should just keep talking until then, or?
Yeah, you could show some of your work right now.
Okay. This is, so my site is pretty standard, theartofericrian.com. Then you can click on some of the links.
Eric, I'm not able to see your screen. Can you?
Oh, you're not?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Can you see it now?
1 second. No. Oh, there you go. It's working now. There you go.
Okay. Great. And are you seeing the second screen? Okay. Let's go.
Yeah, we're seeing your desktop now.
Okay. So
there you go. That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite pieces of yours, man. Super cool.
Thanks.
It's like a raptor hunter.
When I get to do stuff on my own, my own personal work, I tend to do better and more interesting. Just put it that way.
Nice.
So yeah, a lot of creature stuff. Some of it's inspirational, meaning like I was kind of inspired by other movies. Like here, for example, was inspired by Prometheus. So I wanted to do my own take on kind of like that transition of the, I don't know if you guys, I'm nerding out now, but
Yeah, by all
the
means.
the guy who got infected by the black goop, I
Yeah.
wanted to do like something that was a little bit more representational of the rest of his body and how that would really look. But anyways, so lots of character stuff, lots of creature stuff, a few environments and props.
Cool.
Try to, it's mostly in that kind of realistic realm or close to realistic realm. But try to do some stuff that's a little bit more lighthearted, more recently now. And just funny.
That's awesome.
The that was kind of inspired by Hearthstone and some of their
Oh,
cards.
yeah.
So I wanted to create my own card illustration and
Goblin
whatnot.
decks.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So
Do you I got a question here. Do you when you do these kinds of concept works, do you usually do you ever work in pencil first?
I used to a long time ago, but then it's another whole step because you have to scan it in and blah blah blah, paint over it. So it's just faster to just paint straight into Photoshop. A lot of people still do that though, because they want that kind of raw quality to the line work, and I think it does look cool. For me, I can knock things out a lot faster, not having to go to a scanner. A lot of times, especially when you're at like a company, the scanner is across the, across the, not, I don't want to say across room, like across on the other side of the building, and then you got to like make sure it's hooked up and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
I just kind of completely forego it and go straight into Photoshop.
Got you.
If they had it like set up like right on my desk, sure, that might be an option, but I just, and plus, another thing too is I'll admit straight up, I'm more of, like, I'm not really heavy in line art. Like, I'm not really confident with my line art and having that nice cleanliness to it. I'm pretty rough and dirty and more painterly when I start hashing out thumbnails and ideas. I just have that more painterly approach to things because I don't want to try to make a beautiful drawing at the beginning. I want to do that more towards the end. I want to just make a bunch of, this happens in concept art a lot where you need to make, 10, 20 designs off of the same idea. And you don't want to sit there and make them all beautiful because you're just wasting time because you're only going to end up with one of those. So you just, go through a lot of different ideas. Art director picks them or picks what they like, what they don't like, and then you hone that in, and then after the design is kind of more or less fleshed out, then you go ahead and you make that final cool render that everybody loves.
Right.
So that's why I don't really focus a whole lot on line art and being really clean at the beginning. I tend to do that more towards.
You were talking about that you were more painterly. Do you find yourself like using the tablet more often than the Cintiq, or like what kind of tablet do you use?
Cintiq. I'm on a Cintiq right now.
Okay.
And to be honest, it really doesn't matter. It's some people complain about a little bit of association and like trying to. It's easier to paint more directly than it is, when you're on like a tablet and you're painting more indirectly. You get the same result. If you're at a decent skill level, you're going to get the same result. Either way. It might be better for people who do line art because when you, I don't want to get too much into the details of why one can be better than the other, but if you make, for example, if you make an arc, if you paint an arc, here's the big selling point, if you will. If you paint an arc on, and I'm on a Cintiq right now,
Okay.
If you try to paint over that arc, it's a lot easier to do when you're more direct.
Mm-hmm.
when you're more directly painting it like that than if you were trying to do that on a tablet. Especially if you're on a tablet that is, like, say your screen is this big and your tablet is like this big, that association is going to be even harder to make. It's going to be harder to follow that arc from here and on here.
True.
So when you're on a Cintiq, you get to make that association one-to-one, and there's no association kind of change from one to the other. So that being said, there's people who kick butt on anyone. So
Yeah.
it's not going to really change things too much. Just what you get used to. Once you get used to it, you'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense, though. Like, I can totally see that.
I'm considering. There's a lot of being said about the new Cintiq, and I would like to upgrade just because they have more. There's more color range to them. This only has like 70% RGB, but it's just like, do you want to spend $3,000
Right, yeah.
every single time you want to upgrade your Cintiq, or do you want to like spend $500 to get a better tablet? It's a lot easier to get a tablet, and then you gotta make sure you have all the ports and all the correct. It's just
Right,
so
right.
it can be a pain.
Cool, cool. Well, could you dive into your design process and creatures right now? Is that possible?
Yeah. So let's see. So let me start by saying that this class, if it's going to go the way I think it is, I'm pretty sure previously I was only teaching character design.
Mm-hmm.
So for this class, if it's character and creature, I just want to, what we can make sure that's the case, but it's going to change how I teach via the videos. So I would definitely want to make sure clarify that with everybody. It's not going to be, like, if you're watching the videos, it's not going to be necessarily one-to-one, because there's going to be more creature stuff in there as well. So, but that being said, I'll show you kind of the process, it would take. This is a video I did, actually. I'm not going to show you a video, but this is from a video I did for Gumroad, just to kind of show my process more.
That's awesome.
But for this guy, it got to a colored state and more rendered and whatnot. But you can kind of see this is on my PSD. I'm kind of turning off layers and groups.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of see where it began.
Just to repeat you said this was on your Gumroad?
Yeah, my Gumroad website. I think it's just a Gumroad / or / Eric Ryan.
Okay, cool.
But I could be wrong. So I'll check that. I'll check that in a second. But I'll just show you really quickly how this one started. And you can see it's messy. It's like I'm not really focusing on clean line work. It's just more like big, bold kind of brush strokes.
Mm-hmm.
So layer here, it's not. Okay, I got it. So you can kind of see
Do you have a lot of layers, or when you do work? Or?
Yeah, I was embarrassed to say about how many layers. There's probably like, I've had upwards of 100 layers on things.
Oh, wow.
And it's not necessarily a good thing. It's just it makes it a little easier when art directors come by and they want something changed and you
Mm-hmm.
haven't flattened things.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyways, you can kind of see, and there's a little bit of there it is. It's on the background. Let me just fill this in really quick so we can get a little bit of clarity. Okay, so these are the thumbnails on how this thing worked out. it started out. Big kind of bold shapes, just figuring out something that looks good, something that's interesting, something that's clear. That's what thumbnails are for. And then introducing some tonal breakup for materials, or just seeing some kind of separation and how things will look at a distant read, your first and second read, and then just playing with those shapes. Now really, you can see, and I can get into more of the an actual demo in a bit, but you can see that I'm not focusing on lighting or texturing or any kind of third read detail. It's all just very flat and clear, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then it kind of, I start to figure out what those shapes mean. Like, what does this mean? Where's the head? Where's the mouth? Where's the shoulders? So making sense out of these kind of interesting shapes, and then starting to develop that for an actual render.
Very cool.
Some of these layers are not going to be. I'll just turn that off, but and bring this in. But eventually you get to kind of this point where it's fully rendered. You're in your color path, and hopefully you've kind of achieved what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I look back at some of those thumbnails I did, and I can easily make something out of some of those. I mean, that's what's great about thumbnailing, is that sometimes you make a bunch of thumbnails, and there's 3 or 4 of them that you like, and you'd like to further explore those other ones. So it's just a good way to work if you're interested in design. If you're not interested in design, then you can be an illustrator, and just make cool, epic images.
Right.
But if you really want to have a solid design for your characters and creatures, then you want to go through the design process.
Definitely. Are you, when you're doing thumbnailing or the early stages, do you look at reference at all, or how do you collect reference?
Yeah, it's like a big process. It's a pretty heavy step and pretty important step at the beginning, and I think a lot of students end up underestimating the value of reference. They'll, typically, for example, let's see, I could bring this over here. This is some of the reference I started to pull for that character that you just saw. Crazy worms and insects,
cool,
caterpillars and whatnot. But it just kind of gives you a basis. Not only does it ground your work in reality and help to make it feel more plausible, but it also shows you patterns and shapes and forms that you might not have been thinking about previously. So it's an inspirational step as well as an informational one. And when you go to rendering, this reference really helps, because you see how light is working on these creatures, and how materials are changing and whatnot. So really being a stickler for references is a good thing, and just always kind of using it as your Bible, so to speak, when you create your character, and really trying to extract as much information from it as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a long-winded way of kind of saying it's a very important step, and a lot of people spend an hour plus, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours collecting reference, just to kind of hone in on what they're going to do. I've made in the past reference boards where you in Picasa, which is a free program on Google, you can basically make a collage of your images and rotate them and have them overlap in a way that's clear to you. And you can basically have that one image, put it off, ideally if you had two monitors, you put it off onto one monitor, put all your tools, like a kind of like my layers and all that junk, my reference off to one monitor, and then have my Photoshop just be completely about the image itself. This monitor is completely about this image here, and then if I need to turn my head and look at my reference or my tools or my layers or whatever, then that's off from the other image. When I say tools, I know literally in Photoshop these are your tools. This doesn't take a whole lot of real estate, so I'm fine with this here. But like my brush presets, history, all that stuff would be off on my other monitor.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
So, yeah.
This leads to another question. Do you photo bash in your work at all, or do you mainly?
Yeah. So I mean, my I guess theory on this is I do. I mean, you have to on a lot of stuff, especially when you're working in realism. Like I'm working on Black Ops 3, and it's like that's almost part and parcel of what you're doing. But sometimes they'll be okay with doing more hand-painted work. Like in God of War, it was like 99% hand-painted. I prefer hand painting because I'm actually learning from what I'm doing. If I'm just photo bashing stuff, then I'm not really learning anymore. I'm just kind of, and you're kind of, if you do it in a certain way, like for example, I actually did this piece just because I needed more photo work on there because, especially in film, they want like this, and to be honest, I don't even like this piece, So, but I had to do it to kind of just show that I can manipulate a photo, which is ironic because, if you can do any of these other things, like if you can hand paint something, and you're really good at that, manipulating a photo or many photos to make one is like, easy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really, in my opinion, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to get to this place, whereas like all the other stuff I've worked on is a lot more difficult to get right. So that's that's not to cast aspersions on people who do that, because I understand sometimes you have to do that, but I do think that for sure limits your ability to learn and get better. So
yeah, I would agree. Like when I was starting off too, very similar. Painting was so much more learning.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So I like, to this day, I'm huge on learning. Like you can never stop learning. And so, I myself am kind of going through some of the video tutorials on CGMA, or I'm like, I have a subscription to, New Masters Academy to get some of my own fundamentals better. So it's like stuff like that, to just constantly, reach out all your feelers and find as much information as you can out there to get better faster, because that's essentially what you're doing, is you're trying to get better faster, get over some of these humps that you're having with your own work, and navigate those kind of treacherous waters, and just come out on the other side a really awesome artist, hopefully.
Right. That being said, would you say that speed is the key to concept art in
Speed is
games?
I think a lot of people, when they get as students, they think that speed is like 80% of the job. I think it's like 10% or 5% even, because it's maybe I'm speaking from a different perspective too, because I'm pretty fast. Like but people keep, every time I go to a company, they're like, oh, we work really fast here, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll give them images, a week before they're expecting them, just, or a few days before they're expecting them or whatever. And they're not even ready to comment on it. So it's just like, maybe I'm coming from a perspective of like I'm already fast, and I'm not sitting here trying to toot my own horn, because I think that speed for me has actually been a problem, because I feel like I'm too concerned about being fast and not concerned enough about just being good. So I think that can make my work look bad. Like I look back at a lot of stuff I've done, and I'm like, I could have, paid more attention, or really resolve this more, or what have you. So I don't really, I took a class with Kevin Chen one time at his Concept Design Academy, and when I was learning, I had taken a lot of life drawing classes before, and I was taking his at this point, and he really just kind of broke it down. And he's just like, look, you got to be slow before you can be fast. You can't start off and just be fast. That's just because you're not going to know what to do.
Right,
so
right.
You have to really put in that time. Lots of long poses, lots of slow work and thought on anatomy. I was taking his anatomy class at the time, and you'll be faster the more you do it, and you just won't even know it. You'll just be able to knock these things out a lot quicker, and it'll kind of creep up on you. And this, maybe something that took you hours to do before is now taking you 1 hour. So you just have to be patient and let that process of repetition and doing things a lot kind of wash over you until you're at that point. A lot of people now are just kind of like, they want everything now. Just in this age of information and the internet, like, everybody wants things to be done yesterday. And I understand the demand for that, but also it's like you can't. Some things you just have to take your time and get good at.
Definitely.
Because it'll definitely show in your work if you don't.
Right, definitely.
So
That's cool. How do you stay true to your style, or how many like influences out there that are incorporated into your work, if that makes sense?
I mean, I always throw out my main influence, creature-wise, especially, is Carlos Fuente. I really like his work, and that guy probably gets a lot of great marketing from me. I really like just the anatomy, the attention to anatomy, and the imaginative aspect, all kind of woven into one to make a really cool design. A lot of people from the past and contemporaries are great. I mean, all the guys at Marvel Studio do great work. All the if I look back, like Bogaro, Michelangelo, Bernini, those guys from the past do, just, they're, masters for a reason.
Right.
Just great with getting a good sense of anatomy, composition, all those things to help make a really appealing image that looks like there's really solid sense of skill behind it, and understanding. That's the stuff I appreciate the most. So of course I like a lot of environment stuff as well. I just don't. It's harder to focus on that and know too much about that, because I'm when you specialize in something, you have to really, your focus has to become very tight. And I have environment stuff, and I very much appreciate environment work. I just in terms of my own progression forward, I kind of have to block certain things out.
Right, yeah. Do you have any advice for new graduates interested in getting into job for designing creatures?
Yeah, I always get the portfolio question, which is, how do I compose my portfolio? that's yeah. So I guess there's a few angles on this portfolio and then other angles. For portfolio, I would focus on your what it is you're most passionate about. So like if you want to become a character artist or a character designer, I should say, go with that and maybe show some proficiency in other areas like props and environments, but have 60 to 70% of your portfolio be character work. And maybe if you're new to the industry, have some process work in there as well. So like thumbnails, roughs, all that stuff, to show how you're thinking and what you're thinking about, and to kind of instill a sense of trust, I guess, in your employer, and that you're just not, finding these images from the internet, or you're not like, it just shows your thought process and that you're capable of contributing on a kind of brainstorm, high blue sky level.
Right, right.
For me at this point, since I've been in the industry for like 12 years, I just show final work, and that seems to be okay. But it's, again, it's like the same thing. It's like mostly character work, so maybe some props and some environment stuff, maybe even some stuff from a different genre, like, cartoony stuff or things of that nature. But you definitely want to submit that portfolio to places that are within that same type of genre of what you're shooting for. Like you don't want to apply to DreamWorks with like a portfolio that's got realistic characters and creatures and photo bash stuff. I would guess that probably wouldn't go over too well. Like they're going to want to see more, cartoony, more simplified characters. I don't say simplified in a bad way, but it's simplified in a good way where, it's very, interesting colors. You're not really focusing on like the sinews of the of the muscles or like all the crazy detail there. It's more about like a simplified cartoony character. So yeah, those are the things I think about. Also, aside from portfolio, if you've already got a decent portfolio together, a huge part is not being a complete douchebag. That's a problem. You definitely want to have a good head on your shoulders. You don't want to be one of those people who, I've heard stories from people, and I have my own stories, but to keep it from getting too dark, I've heard of people who didn't want to like share their reference files or reference images, or didn't want to help out other artists who they were working in-house with. And it's just like you can't do that. The person obviously was scared of competition,
Right.
But in this world, you benefit a lot more from collaboration than you do from trying to keep people from getting ahead of you. And part of the acceptance of this industry is that there's always going to be people better than you, no matter how much you try to stop that. Yeah. So it's like it's futile. Yeah. So it's better to just collaborate, because when you collaborate, you're also letting in information to yourself, so you're going to learn and get better. So just don't treat people like they're less than you, even if their work clearly is not at the point or the level that yours is. It's just like, help each other out, try to work towards, hopefully a common goal, or just try to, even if you're like two students who are part of a class, helping each other out is always more beneficial, and having constructive feedback as opposed to, I've had this before. People have said this to me before, where it's like, I don't like it, or or it sucks, or whatever, and they don't They don't give you, that's fine. If somebody doesn't like your work, you just kind of have to like grin and bear it. But like, what's even more helpful is to say, I don't like it because of this, and to have like a follow-up to that, like to say, maybe if you did this and this and this could improve.
Mm-hmm.
And so you, like for me, that's the best part. If you don't like it, that's fine, but can you at least tell me how to move forward? You know, how would you move forward on it? How would you make it better so that, you know, I can learn and get better? And that's
Right.
what it's, to me, what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really about the opinion aspect. It's more about like, how can we really make this a good design, better, you know, move forward, and everybody will kind of benefit from that.
Yeah, like the why, right? Like why is it that way?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're talking to somebody who can't answer that question, they're just like why, or they're just like giving you these answers that don't answer the question why, then you kind of need to move on.
Right.
You know, you might not be able to make them happy. Not to say that you should sacrifice your design to make anybody and everybody happy. That's not the point of concept art. You just need to know what is going to actually help you and what is not going to help you, and kind of sift through the comments. I always tell people, you know, you can even learn something about your art from like a 5-year-old who has nothing to do with it. I mean, they may have like a gut general reaction to what you're doing, and it might actually have some significance if you think about it, you know, but it might also not, you know, it might just be completely like somebody, you know, might say, oh, I think it'd look better pink, and you're just like, no, it's not. I mean, you don't have to say that to them. You probably shouldn't, but you just should be like, okay, you know, I
Yeah.
appreciate your opinion, and, but certain things like, you know, if somebody would have made the alien monster, you know, pink, that would have been just a, you know, completely bad move. But you maybe there is something, you know, with, you know, all the comments that somebody has to say that is worth kind of extracting and dealing with that. But you know, you just kind of have to filter through it and let people say what they have to say, and hopefully your design will maybe get better.
Yeah, totally agree, man.
Yeah.
So we're hitting the 20-minute mark. Would you be down to show a demo or do anything?
Sure, yeah. Is there anything specific anybody wants, or should I just?
Just go for it. Nothing so far.
Okay. Okay.
They
Let's
said
see.
demons, pink alien, the Hydra.
Holy crap. Okay.
A fairy.
Barry, yes. I'm glad you guys chose
Mutant
that.
pony.
Okay. So,
Do you use anything else other than Photoshop? Or do you have like a replace? Like I know some people use Painter or anything. You prefer Photoshop?
no, I mean, I tried Painter. It's just not. It's just a different workflow, and
Uh-huh.
it's more for like somebody who wants to get that traditional look, and Photoshop gets you close enough to that traditional look that you don't necessarily have to go. It, you know, depends. Some people do use Painter. I don't know that many people who do, but and there's like, you know, a lot of it's like there's some open source. Uh, is it like an app or is it like a program? It's I forgot what it starts with. It's like starts with a K, I think. But it's like it's trying to emulate Photoshop, but it's open source, I guess, and people can modify it. But
Interesting.
and it doesn't really cost nearly as much, I'm guessing. But there's all sorts of cool functionality that they offer as well. And some of these programs are trying to kind of bring in the great aspects of Photoshop and keep out the bad ones. Like, you know, a lot of people complain about there's no way to organize your brushes in Photoshop, which I think that would be great if
Oh
they were
yeah,
able to fix that.
man, that would be the
I
best.
don't know why they've waited this long uh, to address our problem, but I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm just kind of, this is usually how I start thumbnails, but I'm not going to, maybe I shouldn't thumbnail this. Maybe I should actually draw something. Um, so, with creature design, like the cool part of creature design is that you don't have to sit there and be limited to this. This is, your bipedal human, right? You got to work within this kind of framework here and make this more interesting, this silhouette. So what's fun about the creature design portion of this class is that you get to start off with really bizarre and interesting and memorable shapes. For some reason, I always default to this weird kind of triangular thing. Try to break out of that here if I can.
So in your initial phase, you're just looking for the big shape, the icon, like something iconic, or
Yeah, right. Something memorable, something iconic, something that's not human looking.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people, they kind of go to what resonates with them the most first, and a lot of people tend to just go with a humanoid looking alien. And I say go with the shapes, go with the more interesting, bizarre shapes first, and then if you have to if you're forced to do a humanoid alien, then go for it. But if not, why don't you do something that's just more interesting and random? This allows you to be more creative, going with something that's got a vastly different silhouette than a human, because
Yeah.
we all know what that looks like.
Right, right.
Um,
You were just mentioning how you're aware that you always default to that one shape. Do you have any advice in breaking out of comfort zones in terms of
yeah, my advice is taking a process that is much longer than this one is going to be today, but it is to go through the thumbnail process. The part of the thumbnail process is that the first 4 or 5 thumbnails you do are going to be very garden variety, very expected, things that you're thinking in your head of something. But then after that, when you're forced to kind of do more, you have to in order to not recreate what you've already done, you're going to have to start thinking out of the box. So what's great about thumbnailing is that you're kind of purging the bad, unoriginal ideas, and you're starting to get into the cool new ones.
Right.
So that's a huge part of my process when I'm actually trying to sit there and really come up with a cool design, is to think about this stage. Be really critical at this stage, so that once I get to my rendered stage, it's all just fun at that point.
Right.
So I'm not really thinking about, wow, I'm rendering this and my design really sucks and I've wasted a lot of time.
Oh yeah.
So, and you can see here, I'm gonna I realize that people who do line arts tend to start out a little sloppier anyways, but then they go back and paint over that line work. I just kind of go with my crummy line work, or I'll just go into, I'll just start painting right on top of this. I won't try to fix that until it absolutely needs to be fixed, so I can think about construction or what this thing actually is and where things are going to go in a very specific way. But yeah, really focusing on interesting shapes first.
Got you.
And part of the main, I guess, rule of design is that you want to create something that's original, something that people are going to remember. And if you're thinking on those terms at all times, you will undoubtedly come up, and you're trying to actually actively fix that as you come up with your design. You'll always be in a good place, I think. You'll have a design that will be interesting and speak to people, and you won't have a lot of comments of like, oh, I've seen that before, or oh, that looks exactly like this other thing I've seen, which is annoying to hear.
Right.
Especially if they're right.
Yeah. Then you're stuck.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because your whole job is to fight against that, to
Right.
not. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Would you, do you have any recommendations on books?
Yeah, so many recommendations on books. Here's the problem. This is my ongoing issue as an artist is you always want to find like one really solid anatomy book or one really solid animal anatomy book or whatever it is, but they just don't exist. And there are a couple books out there that are like really much like that. Like, for example, I have this Alla Prima book by Richard Schmidt, supposedly for all oil painters, that's like the way to go. Like, that's where you want to start. Like, it's got all the foundational information you'll need to begin oil painting. And it's great to have a book, like one book to really go to for that, to begin your kind of artistic process or your journey, if you will, your career. But for concept art, there's just not. And I find a lot of concept art books are kind of like CDs back in the day, where like the art for the cover will be really great, or even like if you imagine like comic books, where the cover art is really great, and you open it up, and it's like it's just the art does not match the cover.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Or like that artist is only one of like 12 artists that are in that book, and so you're getting like a lot of stuff that isn't that great, so it's just like you're really looking for a book that just encapsulates all of it, and I just don't think that book has been made yet. So especially, I think there's really great anatomy books. I think that you have to, though, unfortunately, have like a handful of them. You can't just have one to go to all the time, because they cover different things at different levels. Like some are more medically inclined and they go into the nomenclature a lot and pointing things out. Some you need to have more of an artistic look at, because you need to know how to construct it artistically. What I mean is that you need to know what to look for and what to not focus on. Because when you're painting something, you don't want to know necessarily about like the inferior serratus muscles or whatever, like, muscles that are underneath the muscles that are important.
You'll never see
You want to know about the muscles that are showing up, that are going to show up on a torso, not the ones that are like so core to the body that they will never really have an impact on the forms, the outside forms. So you kind of need to have an artistic look at anatomy as well. So having those books really help. So it's just hard to find a lot of, but to answer the question, and to a degree, I have, what do I have here? I have, what's that guy's name?
Is he an older guy or is he a newer guy?
Well, I mean, Bridgman takes a really good look at like artistic anatomy, looking at the forms that are going to matter. There's another one though that's kind of, it's the tech atlas of human anatomy for the artist. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There's artistic anatomy, which is really good. There's, what's that? The Gottfried Bame's book. He has a few of them, but his book is like, it's one of those books where it's like there's a few things in there that are cool, but he doesn't really teach you how to draw them necessarily, especially the books that I have, because I think they're in German, so I can't read them. I just can look at the pictures. So it's like you got to find something that's going to actually work for your process the right way. There's certain books where like they just take pictures and they don't really explain anything that they're doing or what they're thinking as they're doing it. And those can be helpful if they show process and they show step by step. You can kind of extract from the photos what they're doing. And sometimes it's all words, and there's very few photos or images, and sometimes they just show you the final image, so you don't have any clue as to how they got there. So it's just like, you got to roll the dice a lot of times. I think ones that I've found that are really good for process and for just in general, just good solid artwork are a lot of the art of books for like the Marvel movies. Like there's just a lot of good process stuff in there. There's some thoughts behind what they're doing. There's really good, solid work on all those books, like the Iron Man books, the Captain America books. Just that's the stuff. That's the really solid entertainment art books that you kind of want to take with you everywhere. Like for a while when I was trying to get better at creature design, which I still am, but at the beginning I was really carrying around Carlos Fuentes books like they were my Bibles. Like I was just like, how did he do that? I was looking at those images like 10, 20, 30 times each to really like, well, how did he make that shadow, or how did he make that form look like that, or why is it, on a more macroscopic level that his work just really looks good and detailed and really rich and interesting, So you just got to ask yourself those questions as you're going through some of these images, because, for example, his book is one of those books where there's no commentary. It's just straight up images. It's like a portfolio book.
Right.
So you have to sit there and really figure it out, like not only with you painting kind of side by side with that book, but like just look at the images, sit with them, stare at them,
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, so it's just like it's kind of rough, but that's sometimes what it comes to,
Just sitting there and analyzing.
Yeah, exactly. Just analyzing. And sometimes, not with his art, because I think his art is it's much more traditional, like in that, even though there's digital stuff in there, it's traditional in that it's all hand-painted for the most part. I would say like 95, 98% of it's hand-painted. And that's the stuff that's hard to really learn, is to get like that. But then there's some of those artists that are out there, some of these concept artists that are out there do have shortcuts, where like you see something that's super, realistic looking, and it's got great work, and you don't even know how they did it, or or how long it took them. Maybe you say, oh, it took me a day or two, but you find out that there's a lot of 3D in there. There's a lot of Photoshop in there, and so that definitely curbs like the amount of time that they spent on it. They're not going to. It may look like an image that took them 2 months to do, but the reason why it took them 2 days is because they know 3D, or they worked with somebody else's 3D image or block out or whatever, or they just used a bunch of photographs and they're really good at hiding them. So there's that. And look, there's exceptions to that rule. I'm not going to cast aspersions, but and I've done it myself. But you just kind of have to be able to weed those things out, so you don't want to set your own expectations so high that you never reach them. You want to understand other people's processes, so that look, here's what I can do and how fast I can do it, and yes, you can speed that process up probably, but you're probably never going to make something that looks as good as like something that's like a 3D paint over, or that's got photos in it, just painting it.
Right.
That would take that. You would have to set your timeline out about 2 or 3 months if you're going to do that. You're not going to be able to do it in like 2 years, or I'm sorry, two days.
Right.
So it's just setting expectations, also setting expectations for people who want to hire you, because you're not going to be able to create super crazy realistic things like that unless you've already got a workflow going, or you use 3D or 2D photos or whatever. So
yeah. Definitely.
So sorry, just getting distracted.
It's all good. We'll be coming to a close soon, so if
Cool.
there's anything else
All right. Well, I mean, I'll just doodle around with this, but you guys can definitely ask questions, and I'll try not to get too distracted.
Yeah, definitely. It's very hard to talk and draw.
No, you can't. You really can't.
Yeah.
I remember I went to a great, Charlie Wen is a great artist.
Oh, Charlie Wen, yeah.
Yeah. Went to one of his seminar or workshops at CGMA, and he literally didn't want to answer questions.
Yeah, he was just quiet.
He needed to draw and think, and that's great, but it's just like sometimes one is more important than the other, especially if people are really depending on you. That really sweet drawing at the end of the workshop,
Mm-hmm.
I remember in contrast, I went to a Craig Mullins workshop or seminar or whatever it was, and he literally talked 95% of the time, and so he really didn't come up with a cool image at the end, kind of like what I'm doing now. So it's just kind of like, whatever you can do in that moment. But try to have something, on both sides. I don't know what this is. Looks like some kind of alien dog fish. And I think one thing I'll bring up too is that concept art, I think you become a better concept artist, and there's also a natural transition, I think, for concept artists. I think you become a better concept artist if you learn how to art direct your own work, because if you can kind of have an objective look at what you're doing and kind of come back and take a break, look at it again, and be like, this isn't working, or this is working, let's keep that. But if you can get that kind of objective art director look at what you're doing, then your work is just going to improve and improve throughout the process, creating that character creature. But if you get too stuck in a rut where you're just trying to, let me now render this thing that I've already designed, an hour ago, let me now render this, and you take off that art director hat at that moment, then you're not, your design is never going to improve from that moment on. It's never going to get better. So I always try to, even though I want to be making fewer and fewer large decisions on my piece, so that I can hone in and finally deliver something at the end, you want to always look at it objectively and think about, hey, maybe I can change this leg to look a bit thicker towards the bottom or whatever, and maybe that'll help the design out a little bit. Or maybe I have too many thin objects here. Maybe I need a thick or a medium-sized shape in here somewhere. And I'll try to always keep that kind of art director hat on, but not let it inhibit or slow down too much what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, like if you're drawing something important like a head of somebody's face and it's just not working, then the best thing for you to do is erase it and start over. It sucks. It sucks to have to sometimes make those big calls where you're going to end up revisiting it and spending a lot of time on it. But if it's not working, it's not working. And you need to, it actually may, you don't want to deliver a bad character. You definitely don't want to do that. And you don't want to spend more time on it. That may actually be for nothing. A lot of times they say, polish. You don't want to polish a turd.
Right. Yeah.
You want to be fine-tuning something that you're going to actually be proud of and that is working on many levels.
Exactly.
If not all levels.
Mm-hmm.
So, and here, kind of like going in and erasing things that are a little distracting, trying to find shapes and not really forms at this point because not really rendering, but things are going to help supplement my design and erase things that are kind of just distracting, like extra strokes. But you can see, I'm not trying to be sergeant here. I'm not trying to think about brushstroke efficiency or making things look very clean. Sometimes it actually works in your favor to not have a clean underdrawing because that creates nice, interesting texture that may show through on your character, especially if your character's got a lot of texture and wrinkles and all that fun stuff to it. Sometimes those little bits and pieces that you leave underneath there help to kind of give it that earthy, rough look. So
definitely.
That's why taking the painterly approach, to me, it seems to work well with this process of character design or creature design, and both,
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't necessarily take like a painterly approach to maybe making a mech. I would maybe construct that more and with line work.
Mm-hmm.
Would probably take that line work to a further cleaner level than I would maybe with a character or creature, which are more organic and a little bit more forgiving, I think. Because, part of, I would say more, for things like mechs that are more technical and industrial, that line work kind of needs to be clean and it needs to be constructed a little bit more, because that ends up showing in your final image, that where those things are. It's a little hard to explain, but it's just like, the painterly approach works well with creatures and characters because they are more organic and there's more a dirtiness to them sometimes, or at least for the realistic stuff that I'm doing, that will benefit from seeing some of that ugly underdrawing. That's not always the case for a clean mech or a mech that has a lot of detail, needs a lot of detail with its construction, like cylinders and spheres and things that are these complex joints and things like that really need to be constructed out.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really have a painterly approach to that stuff as much if you're really trying to show off those cool moments
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
on machinery.
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, we are up to the time. Is there
Okay.
a, is there anything final words you want to say or anything to add
Um,
to them?
yeah, I mean, hopefully you guys get the gist of how I would teach, and I definitely look forward to having people in my class. It's going to be a little different from how I taught character design for this for CGMA. But there'll be a lot of fun, and I'm sure people learn a lot, hopefully, from the class. It's going to focus a lot more on design. There's going to be some comparative anatomy in there and things like that. But for this class, I really kind of want to focus mostly on design and getting things to a nice, solid black and white level, like rendered, very final rendered black and white level. But I will teach things like color and stuff like that. I just won't ask for it in the homework. My teaching method really is just like I want to make sure you guys get what you pay for, and that you don't feel like you've been left out of the loop on any level. I will say though, it is a class that does really, just like all our classes, to be honest, it really emphasizes your participation. So like doing the homework, trying to get as much of it done as possible, and or more, or that would be great. Is not only is it going to help help critique your work, but it's going to make you get better faster. I can get you to a certain point in terms of getting you learning or get you better faster, but you'll get even better, even faster if you actually do the work and you complete it all. And so I just want to make sure that you guys understand that getting your work done and all that is going to be really crucial.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you have to think about people like who are coming out of the Art Center, who knock stuff out like crazy. Their homework assignments are just over the top. Where people like that are going to be, relative to you and how you need to compete with them or people who already have jobs. So if this is a course where you're just kind of going for it and you just kind of want to learn lightly how creature design works, that's fine. There won't be as much of an expectation, but if you're really trying to get into the industry, then I would hope that you take it really seriously. So, and besides that, it's just a fun course. Creature design is always fun, and getting into characters is great too.
Yeah, it's really fun, definitely.
So, cool. Yeah, it's really good.
Great, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eric, and thank you for the audience for tuning in. And yeah, that's great.
All right,
All
cool.
right,
Thanks for having me.
all right, definitely. Take care, everybody.
All right.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.